In October 2025, American Airlines lost 5 gates at Chicago O'Hare, not in a vote, not in a courtroom, because it didn't fly enough the year before. That's all it took. But here's the detail nobody connected. American had seen this coming for months. It sued the city of Chicago in May 2025 to stop it. It lost. A federal judge dismissed the case in September and the gates transferred October 1st, exactly as scheduled. What happened next is the part that turns a corporate dispute into something that affects every single passenger flying through the busiest airport in the United States. United Airlines CEO Scott Kirby looked at those 5 gates, and instead of stopping, he declared war. The question isn't who wins this fight. The question is who pays for it. And the answer isn't either airline. Chicago O'Hare is not just a busy airport. It recorded more scheduled departures than any other airport in the United States in 2025. More than Atlanta, more than Dallas, more than LAX. 2 airlines hub there simultaneously. United controls 42% of the gate space, American controls 30%. Together, they represent nearly 3/4 of every flight that leaves O'Hare. No other airport in America has 2 full-scale legacy hubs operating side by side at this scale. That concentration creates something that looks like competition from the outside, but from the inside functions more like a loaded weapon pointed in both directions. Each gate at O'Hare is not just a door, it's an argument. The city allocates gates based on how many flights each airline operated the previous year. Fly more, get more gates. Get more gates, fly more. The system was designed to reward growth. What nobody anticipated is that it also rewards aggression, even when aggression destroys value for everyone inside the airport. What makes O'Hare different from every other contested airport in America is the scale of what's attached to it. The airport generates an estimated $45 billion in annual economic activity for the Chicago region, roughly the size of the entire GDP of Luxembourg. Every gate isn't just a boarding door. It's a revenue stream connected to corporate travel contracts, loyalty program spend, cargo operations, and the kind of high-margin business traveler that Delta has been chasing in Atlanta for 15 years. United understood this math before American did. That's not an opinion. It's visible in the numbers. Between 2019 and 2025, United grew its seat capacity by 6% above pre-pandemic levels, while American was still running even with 2019. 6 years of compounding advantage built one departure at a time, while the gate formula sat dormant and nobody called it what it was: a clock. Today, we're going to understand how this system actually works from the inside. We're going to look at the financial logic that turned a gate allocation formula into a weapon, and how one airline used it deliberately while the other was still reading the contract. The trap was written into a lease agreement in 2018, and nobody called it a trap at the time. Here's how it works. Under the O'Hare Airline Use and Lease Agreement, gates are redistributed annually based on each carrier's flight activity in the previous 12 months. More departures in year 1 means more gates in year 2. The formula had been suspended during COVID. When it reactivated in 2025, it found American operating roughly even with its 2019 schedule, while United was already running 6% above pre-pandemic levels. The result? United gained 5 gates, American lost 4. The city gained the right to reallocate competitive infrastructure for the first time in the airport's modern history. But that's only part of it. American's own legal filing described the deeper problem with unusual precision. More flights in one year tend to yield more gate allocations in later years, the airline wrote to the court in July 2025. Fewer flights result in additional lost gates, and this trend will become extremely difficult to reverse. American wasn't describing a possibility, it was describing a mathematical trap it had already entered. The formula doesn't just reward the winner, it compounds the loser's disadvantage every single year, automatically, with no intervention required. And then there's the piece nobody talked about publicly. Both airlines moved simultaneously to buy gates from bankrupt Spirit Airlines. American paid $30 million for two of Spirit's four preferential use gates at O'Hare. United paid $30 million for the remaining two, gates whose CEO had previously said publicly the airline wasn't interested in. Within weeks of that statement, United bought them anyway. That is not a business decision. That is a signal. The passenger doesn't see any of this. What the passenger sees is a departure board at O'Hare with more options than ever before. More flights to more cities, more frequencies, more competition. What the passenger doesn't see is that a significant portion of those flights were never meant to carry people profitably. They were scheduled to win a formula. United filed routes to Grand Rapids, Michigan, with 11 daily departures during June alone, a market that generated no meaningful demand justification. American filed overlapping routes to Allentown, Pennsylvania, and Tri-Cities, Tennessee, the day after United announced its expansion. Neither carrier was chasing passengers. Both were chasing gate math, and the infrastructure of the busiest airfield in the United States was being used as the playing board. This has happened before, and the city that lived it has never recovered. Two airlines fighting not over passengers but over positioning. And last time that fight ended, the airport lost, not the airlines. United's response was not subtle. In January 2026, on its Q4 earnings call, CEO Scott Kirby announced 750 daily departures from O'Hare for the summer, the largest schedule ever operated by a single airline at the airport. That's an increase of more than 30% year over year, adding roughly 130 additional flights per day. Kirby claimed United made roughly $500 million in profit at O'Hare in 2025, while American lost approximately $500 million at the same airport. American disputed the figures, but the message was deliberate. United was publicly telling American that Chicago was a market it would bleed the competition dry to keep. American responded the next day, announcing 3 new routes from O'Hare, all overlapping with existing United service. The detail that reveals the real logic. United was adding dozens of low-demand flights, knowing it could roll them back once the FAA mandated cuts and still come out ahead of competitors forced to cancel their own higher-value flights. This is not a capacity strategy. This is a controlled demolition, designed to hurt one specific airline more than it hurts the one setting the charge. By March 2026, the system had exceeded what O'Hare could physically handle. Airlines had scheduled more than 3,080 daily operations, up from 2,680 at peak the previous summer. The FAA determined the airport's infrastructure and air traffic control staffing could not safely support that volume and imposed a hard cap of 2,800 daily operations effective March 29, 2026, forcing the removal of 280 flights per day, affecting an estimated 7 to 10 million passengers across the summer. American publicly blamed United, stating that United's scheduling required action from the FAA. United declined to respond. The flights cut first were the regional jets, the routes connecting smaller Midwest cities to the world through O'Hare. The passengers who lost those connections didn't cause this war. They just ended up inside it. There is a number the FAA order made visible that neither airline wanted to discuss publicly. The gate allocation formula that started this war is still active. Every flight United operates this summer, even under the cap, counts toward next year's reallocation. Every flight American cuts to comply with the cap works against its own position in the next cycle. The FAA didn't stop the war. It imposed a ceasefire on one front, while the underlying battle continues on every other. Kirby said it himself in January. United would add as many flights as required to protect its gate count. That statement didn't expire when the FAA intervened. It just moved to a different calendar. The summer of 2026 is simultaneously a cap negotiation, a gate calculation, and a revenue war, happening at the same time at the same airport on the same runways. United and American are both betting they can outlast each other at O'Hare. United is betting its premium model absorbs the cost. American is betting its growth forces a reallocation that tips the balance back. Neither airline has published a documented plan B if the other one doesn't blink. What's already documented is the collateral damage: 7 to 10 million passengers disrupted, regional routes cut, and a gate war that forced a federal regulator to intervene before the summer even started. The race isn't over. Both airlines are still adding flights. The FAA cap is still in place, and the next gate reallocation is already being calculated, one departure at a time. If you want to understand the real money moving American aviation, subscribe for more analysis. Until next time.